Welcome back to RetroWheelsVault, where horsepower never dies. On RetroVault 4, your tour guide through chrome jungles and V8 thunder. Today we're unleashing the 1967 Buick Wildcat. Think of it as the muscle car world's linebacker in a tux, because modern cars forgot what muscle means. Let's fire this beast up. Here's a fun slice of trivia for you. The Buick Wildcat didn't just appear out of thin air in 1962 as a production car. The name actually has its roots in a series of wild, futuristic concept cars from the early 1950s, fittingly named Wildcat 1, 2, and 3. These weren't your average showpieces. They were Buick's crystal ball into the future, brimming with cutting-edge technology and design cues that looked more at home in a sci-fi movie than on suburban driveways. Imagine sleek fiberglass bodies, jet-age styling, and features that made people in the 50s believe that they'd be commuting to work in rocket cars by 1970. By the time Buick decided to slap the Wildcat badge on a production car, they were borrowing more than just a name. They were borrowing an identity. It was meant to conjure up the same excitement, the same sense of modernity, and a power that those early dream machines promised. In a way, the production Wildcat was like the rock band's studio album after a flashy world tour. Maybe not as experimental, but still packed with energy and style. So next time you see a Wildcat, remember, it wasn't just a car. It was Buick's way of saying, the future is now, with a V8. When you lay your eyes on this Wildcat, it's like watching a heavyweight boxer step into the ring wearing a tailored suit. Classy, but you know there's raw power behind the style. Buick wasn't just making a car here, they were crafting a statement. The long hood and short deck silhouette gave it that unmistakable muscle stance, while the chrome and bumpers gleamed like a knight's armor in the sunlight. This wasn't just designed for the sake of looks. It was Buick saying, yes, we can mix luxury with muscle and we'll make it look easy. 1967 also marked a turning point with new federally mandated safety equipment, meaning the Wildcat wasn't just fast, it was smarter too. Better occupant protection and accident avoidance features meant you could channel your inner speed demon without feeling like you were driving a death wish on wheels. Think of it as the automotive equivalent of adding a safety net under a trapeze act. You could still fly, but with a little more peace of mind. The Wildcat's design was a significant evolution in Buick's lineup, proving that you didn't have to sacrifice elegance for performance. It was a true blend of comfort, style, and unapologetic muscle. Pop the hood on this Wildcat and you're greeted with something that looks less like an engine and more like a declaration of war on asphalt. This was the year Buick rolled out its brand new 430 cubic inch V8, a power plant it shared with the Riviera and electric 225. At 7 liters of displacement, 7,046 cc if you want to get scientific, this cast iron beast packed a punch. 360 ponies at 5,000 RPM and a thunderous 475 foot-pounds of torque at just 3,200 RPM. That's enough twist to make the tire squeal like a teenager at a Beatles concert. With a bore of 4.18 inches and a stroke of 3.9 inches, plus a 10.25 to 1 compression ratio, this wasn't some mild-mannered grocery getter. It was a heavyweight brawler with the lungs of an opera singer. Feeding the beast was Buick's Rochester Quadrajet 4MV 4-barrel carburetor, complete with a divorced choke setup that let the intake manifold handle the warm-up duties. It's a bit like giving the engine its morning coffee. Once it kicked in, the Wildcat was wide awake and ready to roar. This engine wasn't just about numbers, it was about presence. When you dropped the hammer, the Wildcat didn't just move, it leapt forward like a predator, living up to its own name. If the engine was the heart of the 67 Wildcat, then the drivetrain's transmission options were its legs, deciding whether it sprinted, strutted, or cruised down the boulevard. Buick gave drivers a nice buffet of choices depending on just how involved you wanted to be with all that torque. For those who like to keep things simple, the 3-speed BorgWarner T16 manual was available. Straightforward, reliable, and a bit like a dependable work boot. It got the job done without any frills. But if you really wanted to roll your own gears and feel like a gladiator in a muscle car coliseum, the 4-speed Muncie M20 wide ratio manual was your weapon of choice. With its crisp shifts and wider gear spread, it turned every green light into an excuse to flex. Of course, not everyone wanted to wrestle with the shifter. For those who preferred to glide rather than grind, the 3-speed turbo hydromatic 400 automatic came to the rescue. Smooth, tough, and almost telepathic, it handled the Wildcat's massive torque with ease. Think of it like a butler carrying you across the quarter mile, effortless and refined. No matter the setup, the Wildcat's drivetrain delivered one message loud and clear: Buick meant business. This car may have been a heavyweight, but thanks to its chassis and suspension, it could dance surprisingly well for a car its size. Built on GM's B-body platform, the same foundation that carried plenty of big-body bruisers of the era, the Wildcat managed to balance luxury cruising with a touch of muscle car agility. Think of it as a linebacker who could also pirouette if the music called for it. Up front, the independent suspension setup with ball joints and cold springs gave the Wildcat a civilized ride. It's soaking up bumps like a well-padded recliner, while still keeping the steering sharp enough to remind you that this wasn't just a cushy sofa on wheels. The engineering here was Buick's way of saying, yes, you can have comfort and control. Why settle for just one? Out back, the 4-link rear suspension kept the 430's V8's torque in check, helping the Wildcat plan its power without turning every stoplight launch into a smoke show. It was a clever compromise between stability and excitement, like giving a sumo wrestler ballet lessons. The result? A chassis and suspension setup that made the Wildcat feel equally at home devouring highway miles or flexing its claws on winding roads. Step inside the 67 Wildcat and you'll quickly realize this wasn't just a muscle car. It was a rolling living room with a mean streak. Buick designed the interior as a blend of luxury and functionality, giving drivers and passengers the best of both worlds. Plush bucket seats with a center console made you feel like you were settling into a captain's chair on a starship, while the tilt steering wheel added a touch of customization that meant even long-haul drives wouldn't leave you twisted up like a pretzel. The dashboard wasn't just for looks, it was your command center. A speedometer, tachometer, and gauges for oil pressure, water temperature, and fuel level laid out all the critical info at a glance. No guesswork, no surprises, just a clear picture of what your Wildcat was up to. Luxury touches didn't stop there. Power windows, power seats, and air conditioning all came standard, meaning you didn't have to break a sweat while taming all 430 cubic inches under the hood. Add in deep, luxurious carpeting and a vinyl top outside, and the Wildcat gave off the vibe of a gentleman who could throw a punch in a tuxedo. Comfortable, stylish, and always ready to pounce. Out back, the Wildcat packed GM's sturdy 12-bolt rear end, complete with an 8.875-inch ring gear that was tougher than a blacksmith's anvil. Standard models came with an open differential, fine if you were content with one-wheel peel-outs and polite cruising, but check the box for the optional positive traction limit and slip, and suddenly both rear claws dug in at once. That meant fewer embarrassing one-tire fires and more confident launches. Think of it as the difference between hopping on one leg versus sprinting with both. Positive traction made sure the Wildcat put its muscle where it mattered, evenly and with authority. The 67 Wildcat was anything but shy when it came to size. It had a presence that made compact cars of the era look like pocket change. Stretching out to a grand 219.8 inches in length, the Wildcat was practically a city block on wheels. At nearly 80 inches wide, it commanded the road like a battleship cruising down Main Street with plenty of shoulder room for both driver and passenger. Standing 54.8 inches tall, it had that low-slung predatory stance like a big cat crouched and ready to pounce. Its wheelbase measured a full 126 inches, which gave the Wildcat excellent stability and a smooth-as-butter ride, even when the pavement wasn't cooperating. It was the kind of car that floated over bumps rather than stumbling over them, like a heavyweight boxer who also happened to have ballerina-level balance. Curb weight ranged from 3,117 to 3,651 pounds, depending on options. That's a lot of sheet metal and muscle, but the big Buick carried its weight with confidence. Instead of feeling like a lumbering giant, it had the grace of a linebacker in a tailored suit. In short, the Wildcat wasn't just a car. It was an event every time it rolled down the street. The 67 Buick Wildcat had plenty of strengths that made it stand tall in the muscle luxury arena. First and foremost, the 430 cubic inch V8 was a powerhouse, delivering enough torque to make even heavyweights like the Riviera take notice. Pair that with the available positive traction rear end, and you had a car that didn't just move, it leapt forward like a predator on the hunt. The styling was another strength. A long hood, short deck, and chrome accents gave it the perfect blend of muscle car aggression and Buick elegance. Inside, it spoiled passengers with comfort. Bucket seats, tilt steering, and power. Everything meant you could burn rubber in style without breaking a sweat. But like every big cat, the Wildcat had its weaknesses too. For starters, its size and weight weren't exactly friendly to tight city streets or quick parallel parking jobs. It was more ocean liner than speedboat. Fuel economy? Let's just say the Wildcat had a drinking problem, and the pump was its favorite bar. While the handling was respectable for its size, it still leaned more toward luxury cruising than canyon carving. In short, the Wildcat strengths made it a street king, while its weaknesses were simply the price you paid for ruling the road. The 1967 Buick Wildcat was more than just a car. It was Buick's declaration that muscle and luxury could coexist under one roof. With its bold styling, massive 430 V8, and plush interior, it managed to be both the velvet glove and the iron fist. It could cruise down the highway with the grace of a limousine, then tear up the asphalt like a prize fighter when you drop the hammer. Sure, it drank gas like a sailor on shore leave and was about as subtle as a marching band in a library, but that's exactly what gave it character. The Wildcat wasn't just about getting from point A to point B. It was about making an entrance, leaving tire marks, and looking good while doing it. It's one of those cars that makes you wonder, if Buick had leaned harder into muscle, could the Wildcat have rivaled the greats like the GTO or even the Charger? I'd love to hear your take. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and join the Retro Wheels Vault family for more classics. Until next time, keep it loud, keep it classic.